example, Matt Walsh, who's kind of a friend of yours. You've said you've hated him several times, so
Oh, no, Knowles I hate. Walsh I'm indifferent about.
Oh, okay.
Ben Shapiro gets in a heated debate with a college student. Hey guys, this is Isabella Moody from Resist the Mainstream. Make sure you give today's video a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to our channel, share the video, do it all, and let's get right into reacting to today's video.
Whenever conservatives talk about the Middle East, they often like to champion around the superiority of Western values, those of freedom of expression, freedom of speech. I agree wholeheartedly with all of these things, but I think we've seen in a couple months prior to this, for anyone with a good memory, that conservatives have been, in a certain way, very much against freedom of expression, specifically a certain kind of expression, which is, I would say, gender expression. You on your show a couple months ago said that you thought it was fine for sort of local municipalities to say a law that would ban women from wearing a type of clothing that men wear, or men wearing a type of clothing that women wear, would not be sort of in the bounds of the First Amendment, because the First Amendment refers to laws made by Congress. So I'm wondering, with these sort of anti-drag laws, with laws that might ban people from wearing certain types of clothing, do these not go against these sort of Western values of freedom of expression that conservatives usually champion, and the freedom for LGBT people when we talk about?
Okay, off the bat, sorry for interrupting already, but okay, freedom of expression. Does that mean you should have the freedom of expression to go out in public nude in front of children? Probably not, dude, okay? So already, stupid take. Let's see what Ben has to say.
In comparison to the Middle East, as we have just done in this sort of...
So it's a great question. I don't believe in freedom of expression. I believe in freedom of political speech. There's a difference. The founders believed in freedom of political speech as well. That didn't mean that you got to dress up naked on a street corner, right? Because the fact is...
Literally copied me. Literally took the words out of my mouth. Come on, Ben. Come on.
Is that everything can theoretically be considered a form of expression, and even people who are ardent libertarian fans of freedom of expression understand that there are limits to what counts as expression, but nobody can agree on exactly what those limits are. As far as what I've said about localism, one of the things that I'm very big on, obviously, is localism. And we see this in, for example, in HOA. In your HOA, in our HOA, for example, you can't just post anything you want in your window. There's an agreement with the people who live in the neighborhood that you're not allowed to just put whatever you want on your front.
Is Ben pro HOA? Come on. Anyone in the comments below, are you pro or anti-HOA? We must know.
Lawn. You can just park a rusted van on your front lawn, for example. There's nothing that violates freedom of expression or freedom of speech about that. That's what your local community has decided. Now, as you abstract that out to a broader and broader level, the freedom has to grow from that level of government because there's less homogeneity as you move up the chain. So I'm very much in favor of the idea that local communities get to make decisions for themselves on a local level. But as you abstract up the chain with more and more people who are not like you, the government has to take a lighter and lighter hand. So when it comes to, for example, broad statements like freedom of speech or freedom of expression, I would say that not every space, I mean, the Supreme Court has said this, not every space is created equivalent in these circumstances, right? In your apartment building, you can't just stand in the bottom floor and hand out political literature very often, right? I mean, the person who runs the apartment building will kick you out. You're not allowed to do that. There are certain spaces that are considered okay for this and certain spaces that are not considered okay for this. So the idea, again, that there's sort of a flat, one-size-fits-all freedom of speech provision, and it doesn't rely on place, and it doesn't rely on locality, and it doesn't rely on level of government, it doesn't speak to how government actually works or the aspirations of human beings. I think, for example, that zoning laws are a pretty great way of preventing quote-unquote freedom of expression. And I think that local communities should be able to, for example, not have a pot shop directly next to a school. And it's a pretty significant encroachment on the pot shop's freedom of expression. They can't even sell their pot right next to the school. But again, I think that we understand that when it comes to local communities making rules for themselves, because you have the ability to do what I did, right? I didn't like the rules in California, so I got up and I moved. In the United States, I can't really do that, right? That's why I'm very, very skeptical of free speech laws at the federal level, but I'm much less skeptical when it comes to a local school board deciding what it wants to teach. If I don't like it, I can always move to the next town.
Yeah. I mean, some of those don't really fit within the bounds. If you want to talk about like an apartment building, obviously that's a private residence. Free speech doesn't really apply
Okay, but there are time, space, and manner restrictions even at the University of Wisconsin, right?
Sure.
Right, I mean, there's a public school in here. If you protest right now and you start screaming and disrupting, they'll take you out. That's expression.
Yeah. But I wonder if, like, let's say you had a neighborhood in California, they said, you know, we're really offended by all these MAGA hats, we're going to ban you. If you, maybe a city, maybe even a state did this, like if you wear one, we're going to throw you in jail. Obviously, we're opposed to this. I'm not sure if I get the argument that, like, the more you shrink it down, the less freedoms you have.
Well, the more you shrink it down, the more ability you have to shape the community around you. In your family, for example, you have a lot of ability to shape the community around you. As far as MAGA hats, again, when it comes to core political expression, that is what the founders were attempting to preserve. And I think that we've now broadened that out to include everything up to and including your ability to view pornography, which I don't consider core political expression, and neither were the founders.
Well, it's kind of an interesting point. I wonder if political expression, just your ability to like wear certain things, even the act of wearing those things, you could argue is like sort of a form of protest against the ability to wear these things. For example, Matt Walsh, who's kind of a friend of yours. You've said you've hated him several times, so
Oh, no, Knowles I hate. Walsh I'm indifferent about.
Oh, okay. So I remember Lizzo had some drag queens on stage, and he said, like, lock her up because there was an anti-drag bill in Tennessee. But I would say that's sort of I would think it's fair to say she was making a political statement.
Well, she was making a political statement. The anti-drag bill was directed at exposure in front of children. Right? That's what the law actually was. It was exposure of people dancing in sexualized outfits in front of children. That's what it was. And so she was doing it in front of kids. If she did it in front of
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable to have an anti-drag bill when there's literal grown men that are fat, dressed in drag, dancing sexually in front of kids. I can't even believe that this is like a thing that we have to discuss and debate here. Like, shouldn't we be against anyone dancing sexually in front of kids?
adults, I think that's protected by the First Amendment. But you can see, like, bottom line, I don't think your question's bad. I just think that it's a little messier than I think that everybody wants to make it out to be.
Sure. I'm not sure with the the whole children thing. I want okay. But it's like I don't know how much we can sort of shrink like expression when it comes to kids. Like I'm very skeptical of like ratings for movies, for comics, the comics code. Like how much can we shrink free speech just because children are watching?
Oh, I think
like,
an awful lot. I mean, depending on how exactly we're appealing to kids, I think it's very, very important.
Amen. Exactly correct. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.